Hi, I'm Lou, and I have this chandelier in my two-story entry. It looks nice, but there's a problem when it comes to changing the light bulbs. It's hanging 15 feet off the floor in the middle of the room, so I can't lean a ladder against it. And as you can see, I can't reach it over the railing. So what I plan to do is to put a motor in the attic and a switch on the wall that will allow me to lower the chandelier all the way to the floor, change bulbs, and then raise it back up. Here are the major parts we'll need. First of all, a winch motor. I got this from Harbor Freight for about $75 on sale. It plugs into a regular AC outlet, and it has an umbilical like this to control the up and down motion. And it should have some cable on it right here, but I took it off for another project. Some mounting hardware bolts or something to bolt it into the attic. A retractable cord reel. This is the kind where you can pull like this on it. I got the heavy duty one. This one cost me 40 or 50 bucks, I think. A key switch to keep little kids from messing with your chandelier lift. And we'll also be mounting this switch and the key switch in an electrical box, so you'll need one of those in the wall, and then a cover plate to put over the top. You'll have to drill a hole for both of those switches to go in. And if your wife doesn't like the look of keys and rocker switches on her walls, then you'll need some scrap metal bent into this shape with holes cut in. I did this already. Now all that's going to mount, in my case, is going to mount inside there in deep. Stuff's going to mount inside it. And then I'm going to put a fake switch on top of the whole thing to hide it, that she can pull off and then use the controls. And some various other electrical boxes, switches, plates, outlets, that kind of thing. We're also going to need some electrical wiring. I need to mount this winch in the attic. It is fairly heavy and a lot of wires hanging off of it, so to make it easy to work with up in the attic, I'll go ahead and unbolt the motor part, so just this red bracket I can carry up in the attic and find out a good way to mount it. Here we are in the attic above the chandelier. Few words of caution when you're working in an attic. Of course, if you step off a joist, you'll go right through that drywall, and it's a long way down, so be careful about that. On the ceiling here, you'll notice these nails sticking through because of the shingles above. Don't you hit your head on those. And lastly, this insulation is fiberglass, and it gets in the air and gets in your lungs, so be careful not to kick it around too much, and I guess the best thing to do would be to wear a face mask like this. If you're going to be working in an attic for a prolonged period of time, it's a good idea to have a board to stand on and another one to hold your tools. We'll be mounting the motor right about here, and the cable will go all the way down into the top of the chandelier right there. I've tied a plumb bob and a string to the place where the cable comes out of the winch motor, so that when I put it on the ceiling, I'll know right about where I want the winch to be mounted. If you don't have a plumb bob, just use a heavy washer or bolt. And it looks like mine will mount right about here. Now I'll use a little lag bolt and bolt this guy to the ceiling. I've got 2 bolts in place, and of course that's not enough to hold this thing up. But the next rafter is too far away, so what I'm going to do is just put a scrap piece of wood back here and bolt to that wood, and then bolt that wood to that rafter. Go ahead and mount your winch motor back on the bracket. Make sure your chandelier is powered off so this wire is not hot, and then cut it off. Okay, now we've come to the biggest hurdle in this project. There's a 50-pound chandelier hanging from this electrical box straight down. This electrical box is bolted up into this 2x4 right here. And as we talked about before, I don't have a ladder tall enough so that I can get down there and pull the box off. So what I'm going to do is bring my winch cable down and tie it through 2 holes in this electrical box down here so it won't fall. And then cut away this board so that the whole thing can be allowed to drop slowly with the winch. Luckily I have this extra piece of board on here. Maybe when the house was built the hole was a little too far over and they needed to move it over. Usually your electrical box will be bolted right to your joist, and so it would not be a good idea to cut the joist that you're standing on out because you'll fall through. So what you should do, if you have that situation where the box is bolted directly to the joist, put in a sister joist, another 2x6 that's say maybe 3 feet long, and bolt it on both sides so it's sistered onto this joist, and then you can safely cut the first joist without it falling through. I've looped the winch cable through the metal box, and now I need to tie these 2 ends together. There are special cable connectors you can get to crimp on here, but I will just be using a piece of baling wire and tie it on and wrap it several times very tightly. I'll give that a little tug with the winch motor to make sure it's nice and solid. To cut through this board from the top, I'm going to be using a combination of a drill with a 1.5-inch paddle bit, which should go side to side all the way through it, and possibly a reciprocating saw, which should cut it this way. There's 4 screws total, 3 are loose. I think we're being held by this 1 screw now. There it is. We're loose. And down goes the chandelier. So the chandelier is now down. And it looks like the cleaning crew has already started working on it. Now we'll deal with the electrical cord that I cut off the chandelier originally. I've got an electrical box here with a hole I've punched out. I'm going to feed these into this. White goes to the silver screw. Ground wire goes to the green screw. Black wire goes to the gold screw. I unhooked the chandelier from the winch cable and brought it down so I could work on it. We've got the chain, a nut, the shroud that goes against the ceiling, and then the mounting hardware. And then this finally is the metal box that we yanked out of the ceiling upstairs. So what I'm going to do now is get rid of the metal box completely and then bend this bracket into a shape so that the cable can go through it. Here's the mounting bracket before modification, and here's what it looks like after modification. I made a loop in the cable again once I took it off the metal box. Next I mounted the metal bracket back like it was into the fixture. The only thing I've added here is a piece of plastic tubing which pushes on one side against the bracket and then on the other side against this housing so this thing doesn't wobble. You can hook the chandelier to the loop in one of 2 ways. One, the simplest way, is just to drop it in and put a machine screw through and put a nut on this side to hold it in place. If you plan on removing the chandelier, you might want to get a small carabiner like this and instead bolt it into your chandelier with the screw, and then simply snap your cable in like this, and then you can take it out easily whenever you want. Next we need to put a plug like this at the end of the chandelier wire, and you can buy stick-on plugs at the hardware store. I don't happen to have one and I don't want to travel, so I'm just going to cut this off the end of my extension cord, throw that away, and then wire these 2 together. And there's our plug. By the way, that's just white electrical tape. Now we're ready to hook our chandelier on and send it back up. Once the chandelier is up, simply plug it into our new electrical box and it's ready to go. Your project could be done right now if you want. If you don't mind crawling up in the attic every once in a while to run the lift up and down, you can just unplug the chandelier, run it down, service it, and run it back up. If you don't feel like going into the attic every time you want to change a light bulb, watch part 2 of this video where we'll add 3 things. 1, the retractable cord reel. 2, a limit switch which will keep us from pulling the chandelier right through the ceiling. And 3, a key switch and control that allows us to move the chandelier. Thank you for watching and good luck with your chandelier lift.